Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC Vegas 74, Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi just ended, and this is going to be a post-fight solely for the main event, Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi. I'm going to do a full card recap after this, but I wanted to make a video on the main event because it is so controversial. There's a lot of people screaming robbery, and I wanted to quickly do a video just breaking down the main event because if I do a full card recap, I'm only going to spend a couple minutes on each fight. I figured why not have a dedicated video for this main event. So first off, how did I score this fight? You have a split decision win for Amir Albazi. And going into this fight, I thought Kai Kara-France had very good defensive grappling. I thought he had the better striking. And I thought he'd win this fight via decision. And going into the scorecards, I wasn't sure. Honestly, I know a lot of people were screaming robbery and they thought for sure that Kai Kara-France won. I wasn't sure and I wasn't confident going to the scorecards. How did I score it when I watched it? And I've rewatched it since. I haven't rewatched it in its entirety, but I've rewatched the first and second round. I rewatched the fourth round a couple times. How did I score it initially? Initially, I thought basically every round was close, but I had the first round for Kai Kara-France just barely. I had the second round for Amir Albazi just barely. I had the third round for Amir Albazi. I thought Amir Albazi took the third round. I thought it was pretty clear. I had the fourth round. I thought it was close initially, and I thought it could go either way. And then I went back and rewatched it because I saw a lot of people flipping out about the judges' scorecards, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. And I thought it was Kai Kara-France. I thought he won the fourth round. We'll talk about that round more in depth in a minute. And then round 5, I thought it was very close. I thought it was Kai Kara-France. So on my scorecards, I had round 1, round 4, and round 5 for Kai Kara-France. So based off that scorecard, 48-47 for Kai Kara-France, in my opinion. But as it's going to the decision, as the clock's winding down in the 5th round, I'm seeing that the commentators talk about the stats and talk about the odds going into the end of the fight, how Kai Kara-France is this massive favorite now, and Albazi's like plus 400 going to the judges' scorecards. And I literally thought to myself, a lot of these rounds were very close. I honestly want to go place a bet on Amir Albazi. Can I bet on him before the decision's read? I literally said that in my live stream because I thought the fight was very close. And what it comes down to really, and we're going to take a look at what exactly it came down to with the judges' scorecards, because there is a judges' scorecard that I think is a little bit off. But I just think it's a very close fight, and I think it really comes down to those first 2 rounds. The first round, I thought it was very close. Both guys landed good shots on the feet. Amir Albazi had some control time up against the fence where he landed some strikes. And then Kai Kara-France, like the last minute, landed a couple good right hands. And I thought that just barely stole the round for Kai Kara-France. Round 2, very close. I thought Amir Albazi landed some harder strikes than Kai Kara-France, landed a little bit more damage. I thought he won that round based on that, but it was very close. I could have seen it going to Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France was pumping the jab all day. Round 3, I think it was clear as day Amir Albazi. He got the takedown. Well, initially he got a takedown. Kai Kara-France sprung right back to his feet. Got another takedown. Kai Kara-France trying to scramble, get back to his feet. Then eventually got him down again, gets his back, almost gets a rear naked choke, controls him on the ground for a while. Eventually, Kai Kara-France, and we're going to break down this fight, from their skill point, not just the decisions in a minute. We're going to talk about their skills. But Kai Kara-France gets back to his feet, shakes Amir Albazi off at the last 30, 45 seconds of the round, I think, and then ground and pounds Amir Albazi for the last minute or so, roughly a minute. I don't remember exactly the time. And land some decent ground and pound. But I just thought Amir Albazi took him down, controlled him for basically 4 minutes, had a rear naked choke that was very close, threw some ground and pound while they're on the ground. I thought Amir Albazi clearly took the 3rd round. 4th round, and I've rewatched this now. I've watched this 4th round 3 times. I started to zone out a little bit during this round. I thought it was very boring, very uneventful. And Kai Kara-France just out-jabbed him this round, essentially. Out-jabbed him. I know there was a moment where Amir Albazi kind of dragged him to the ground twice, but he didn't do any damage, and he popped right back up. And then there was a moment where Kai Kara-France kind of took Amir Albazi down for a second, and Albazi popped right back to his feet. And round 4 was extremely boring. But I think Kai Kara-France took round 4. Round 5, another competitive round, another lackluster round, to be quite honest. And I thought Kai Kara-France just landed a little bit better shots and won the 5th round and should have gotten the fight. How did the judges score it? Well, you have Mike Bell, who scored the fight for Kai Kara France. He scored round 1, round 4, and round 5 for Kai Kara France. Round 2 and 3 for Amir Albazi. So Mike Bell agreed with my scorecard. Then you have Saul D'Amato, who scored rounds 1 through 3 for Amir Albazi, and you had rounds 4 and 5 for Kai Kara France, gave Amir Albazi the decision. And then you had Chris Lee, who scored rounds 1 and 5 for Kai Kara France and scored round 2, 3, and 4 for Amir Albazi, giving Amir Albazi the decision. And I think a lot of people, after every close fight, we're hearing robbery this, robbery that. And I'm always like, well, it's not really a robbery because of this or that. And then you have a judge's scorecard that comes out with a scorecard that's not particularly good. And it's just like, okay, well, now we have to talk about this. We did it with Henry Cejudo. There was one round, I can't remember if it was the 4th or 5th, where it clearly should have been Henry Cejudo, and they gave it to Aljamain Sterling. And if it wasn't for that scorecard, Henry Cejudo would have got the win. And now it kind of happens again in this case. Chris Lee gives round 4 to Amir Albazi, which honestly, after rewatching it, it's basically indefensible. I want to say maybe a hair, it was just an uneventful round. They were probably zoning out. And we're going to talk about whether or not, this is a brutal robbery, which I feel like a lot of people are saying. I was crazy for saying it's not a brutal robbery. That's my opinion on it. But I want to talk about their skills for a minute, because that's really what these post-fight recaps are for. What I learned in this fight, honestly, is Kai Kara France nor Amir Albazi will most likely ever be a flyweight champion unless they rapidly improve. Amir Albazi in this fight, he couldn't really get the takedown against Kai Kara France. The one time he did, and got some control time out of it, he wasn't able to finish him. So, obviously, is he going to be able to do that against Brandon Moreno? Is he going to do that against a guy like Brandon Royval, who's so scrappy and crazy? Is he going to do that against a guy like Davison Figueiredo? I don't think so. And pretty much the only thing I learned in this fight was Amir Albazi is a very good fighter. But honestly, I'm not going to say this is the worst fight ever. And I don't even see a whole lot of people saying it's boring because they're too fixated on the robbery aspect of this fight. This fight was uninspired. This fight was unimpressive. I wasn't impressed with either guy's performance. And for Kai Kara France, even though I think he won, and even though I thought he did very well in this fight, but he just proved exactly what I already knew. He has very good striking, he has good movement, and he has good defensive grappling, anti-grappling, and good submission defense. And that's what he showed in this fight. He was able to stuff the majority of the takedowns, even when he did get taken down, which I know we're going to talk about the stats in a minute because people are going to say, oh, he got taken down this many times, and Albazi got taken down this many times, and people are regurgitating stats I've already seen, which I basically ignore. But even the times that Kai Kara France got taken down, which he got taken down multiple times in this fight, outside of one time, he just popped right back to his feet and really didn't absorb any damage other than the one time where he got taken down and almost got rear naked choked. So that's just who we already knew Kai Kara France was. But Kara France doesn't have the striking to beat a guy like Brandon Moreno. I don't believe he has the striking to beat a guy like, Davison Figueiredo, who may or may not be moving to bantamweight at this point. I don't think he has the striking to beat a guy like even Alexandra Pantoja, who has the grappling as well, where I don't think Kai Kara France is going to want to end up on the ground with him, so he's going to be very reserved with the striking. I don't think that he's going to be able to go out there and put on a striking clinic against him because of the threat of the takedown. Because in this fight, early, the first, second round, and even the third round, we saw a Kai Kara France who was very reserved because he was worried about the threat of the takedown from Amir Albazi. He defended well, and after that third round where he got taken down, controlled, almost rear naked choke, and he shook him off, the confidence came back for Kai Kara France, and in the fourth and fifth round, he was moving forward more and more. He was less tentative than he was in the early rounds. And I think really what this fight came down to was whoever was moving forward was winning the fight. Kai Kara France wasn't fighting great backing up. Amir Albazi wasn't fighting great backing up. Both guys had decent leg kicks in this fight. But honestly, we learned that Amir Albazi, because the competition Amir Albazi has faced up until this point has been lackluster, we learned that he can hang with one of the top guys in the flyweight division. But unless he improves rapidly, I don't see him being a champion at flyweight. The striking isn't like the elite of the elite. It's better than I thought, but I also think he had some success with the striking because Kai Kara France was worried about the takedown early. And also, Amir Albazi, it's not like he's Pantoja on the ground. It's not like he's definitely going to get a submission every time he gets you to the ground. And so for me, I just don't see a threat of either one of these guys for the flyweight title anytime in the future. But Amir Albazi proved himself that he belongs, but did he really win? That's always going to be the question mark. And, for Kai Kara-France, I didn't learn anything new about Kai Kara-France. And honestly, I don't want to crap on the fight too much because it wasn't a horrible fight. I enjoyed watching the fight. This fight was uninspired. It wasn't the greatest fight. It wasn't the greatest fight by any means. The fourth round was going to put me to sleep. And I rewatched that a couple times just because there was a lot of controversy surrounding that round. But the people screaming robbery, I'm just so tired of hearing about this. Every single fight card we hear robbery this, robbery that, robbery this. Just because you don't agree with the decision does not make it a robbery. This was not a robbery in my opinion, okay? And I went back and rewatched the majority of this fight. I do believe that Chris Lee's scorecard is incorrect. I don't believe he should be giving round 4 to Amir Albazi. But I have no problem with Sal D'Amato's scorecard, who's notorious for bad scorecards. 1 through 3, 3 was definitely Albazi. 1 and 2 were razor close. 4 and 5 should go to Kai Kara-France. I mean, the most definitive rounds, in my opinion, round 3 was the most definitive round of every round in the fight for Amir Albazi. Round 5, I think, was the second most definitive round for Kai Kara-France. And then round 4, because there was barely anything thrown, and we're going to talk about the exact numbers here in a second, because there was barely anything thrown, Kai Kara-France won the 4th round just because he was pumping the jab, and that round was super uneventful. But every time we have a close competitive fight, we hear robbery this, robbery that, brutal robbery. All the fans are screaming brutal robbery. And I keep hearing one common thing consistently brought up. The stats say this, the stats say that. First off, you do know the judges don't look at the stats. The judges don't know about the stats, right? Second off, those stats consistently are widely inaccurate. And you're saying, Joey, how do you know that? First off, I've never used the stats to support any of my arguments, and I'll never accept them as legitimate proof to discredit any of my arguments because essentially they are worthless. Those stats are worthless, okay? They don't tell you the impact of a strike, and half the time the numbers aren't even correct. Let's go to round 4, because guess who happened to rewatch round 4 now? Rewatched it twice, have seen it 3 times. We keep hearing brought up time and time again. I had people send it to me on Twitter. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, at MMAJoeyC, Instagram is the same. I keep seeing this common stats brought up. Well, Kai Kara-France outlanded Amir Albazi 27-5. Well, guess what? When I went back and rewatched round 4 twice, I had a chat opened up where I could hit a number every time Amir Albazi landed a strike. Because I'm like, 5? That doesn't sound like very many. Guess what? I counted 12 strikes for Amir Albazi, okay? 12 strikes. 2 of them were questionable. So bare minimum 10 strikes. That's double the amount of strikes that the stats gave Amir Albazi. You can go back and watch for yourself, okay? I counted 12 strikes. 2 of them were questionable. But even if you want to subtract those 2, 10 strikes, that is double. And I know people are going to say, well, that's still 27-10. That's irrelevant because you don't know the impact or power of them based off of stats. And I'm not using those stats to say Amir Albazi won the round. I'm just showing you how widely inaccurate they are, okay? They're consistently inaccurate. And for the people using them to back up their claims, we hear the commentary team constantly bring up the stats, which that's a video in itself. I should make a video about the commentary team swaying the fan base into thinking a fight's a robbery. But you have people consistently bring these up. And I want to ask you one question. If you're bringing up the stats, give me the names of the person who compiled these stats. I want to know the names of the people who made these numbers. You don't know them. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they come from. You don't know how they're counting. You don't know their methods by any means. They're just fed to you by the UFC. We don't know who's making these stats. I never believe the stats. I will never use them to reinforce one of my arguments, and I will never use them to discredit any of my arguments. And what consistently goes on here, every time we have a close fight, is the commentary team, they don't have nothing else to talk about, so they just talk about the stats. They talk about the betting lines. That's all we hear. I might have to make a video about the commentary team in general. And then what we have is a narrative being shaped by the commentary team. And then when that decision doesn't match up with that narrative, we have a bunch of outrage by fans. What I saw here was a fight that Kai Kara France probably should have won. He probably should have took round 1, round 4, and round 5. But what I'm also clear-headed enough to see is round 1 through 3 could have went to Amir Albazi, because round 1 and 2 could have went either way. And then round 3 was clear Amir Albazi. This was a very close fight. This was a very competitive fight. This was a very lackluster fight. I mean, imagine a flyweight throwing, let's just go by the numbers, landing 5 strikes in a round or 27 strikes in a round for Kai Kara France. I would love to see how those stats compare to Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 1. I would love to see those comparisons. Not that I care about the stats, but I bet you the numbers would be radically different. And what we saw here was 2 guys who put their faith in the judges for some reason and just fought uninspired. I just saw no sense of urgency from either fighter. I saw no sense of urgency. Outside of the 3rd round for Amir Albazi, I saw no urgency from either fighter to get a finish. And I just think this is a fight where when you fight this conservatively and you don't want to take any risk and you don't throw any real big shots and you're worried about getting taken down or you're worried about getting clipped with a shot and you don't throw and you don't have that much of an output, it is what it is. And honestly, in my opinion, I understand we judge it round by round. In my opinion, I watched this fight. I'm like, okay, give it a draw. Make it a draw. You know, because honestly, if you saw this fight, and I know this is a weird comparison, if you saw this fight on the street, you'd be like, it was pretty even. You know, I don't really know who won. That's what you would say, because that's essentially what this fight was. It was lackluster. Nobody really did anything crazy significant. And I think the rounds that you could give to Amir Albazi, maybe he was outstruck. I don't know the exact stats for every round because people are probably going to bring them up in the comments. I don't know. But Amir Albazi, when he did land, I felt like he was landing more powerful shots than Kai Kara France. Kai Kara France was like pumping the jab, landing some good leg kicks. And again, I scored it for Kai Kara France. I picked Kai Kara France to win. If anything, I'm biased towards my pick, even though I don't let that get to it. But I'm just saying, I scored it for him. What more do you want? And I just think this is not a robbery. And every fight that you don't agree with the judges' scorecards is not a robbery. And I'm going to bring up one last thing just because I know I'm going to see it down in the comments. Someone's going to say, you're saying not to call this a robbery, but you say Sean O'Malley versus Piotr Jan was a robbery. Piotr Jan won 30-27. I will die on that hill. The stats wildly inconsistent for that fight as well and wildly inaccurate, okay? Paddy Pimblett, robbery win over Jarrett Gordon. Those are real robberies. Even if you want to go back, Diego Sanchez versus Ross Pearson. Go back and rewatch that fight. That is probably the single-handedly worst robbery I've ever seen in my entire life as an MMA fan. That is a robbery. Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi is not a robbery. Neither guy truly won. But if I had to score for someone, if I'm a judge, I'm giving it 3-2 for Kai Kara France. And I think both guys looked uninspired. If anything, I don't want to see either one of them fight for a title anytime soon. Rebook it. Let's have a rematch. Put it as a co-main event for, or not even a co-main event. I was going to say a co-main event on a fight night card. But put it on the prelims of UFC 293, which is going to be in Australia. Why not? Rebook it. If it's so controversial, let's see them run it back. I think it's a decent fight. I think they're both highly skilled. I think it's a competitive matchup. Why not run it back? I'm not super impressed by either guy's performance. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Make sure to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. And also, if I do the full post-fight for this card, the full card recap, I will link it down in the description as well as I will leave a pinned comment. So make sure to go check that out after this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.